Okay, so today's topic is organic, conventional, sustainable, local, oh my. This webinar is brought to you through a partnership with the University of Florida IFAS Extension and the Hillsborough, Seminole, and Putnam County Extension offices. Next slide. The University of Florida IFAS Extension is the outreach from the university bringing research-based information to counties. It is a partnership between the University of Florida and county governments. All 67 counties have an extension presence, and most of the extension offices have a family and consumer sciences agent who works in the areas of health, nutrition, financial management, relationships, and more. Next slide. Our webinar team consists of Wendy Dahl, Wendy Lynch, Julie England, who's going to be speaking today, and Jay Malalapour, and that's me. And we have a guest presenter, Hannah Wooten from Seminole County. She's the Sustainable Agriculture and Food Systems Extension Agent. So for those of you who are new to our webinar, here are just a few tips. You should see a box to the side of your screen that looks like this. If you don't, click on the red arrow and it will expand. You'll be able to see the materials box to download the slide handouts and the flyer for our future webinars. There's also a chat box at the bottom where you can enter questions and comments. Feel free to send comments and questions to the entire audience or just to the presenters. Also, this afternoon you'll be emailed a very short evaluation. Please take a couple of minutes to complete it. Your feedback is very important to us. And with that, let's get started with today's session. So I'll turn it over to Julie.
Well, good afternoon. I want to welcome you to one of my favorite topics because I think that it's one of the things that a lot of times people just don't understand some of the differences. So that's kind of some of the things that we're going to talk about today. And so this is one of my favorite pictures, and if I could go back in time, when I took this picture, it would be a lot clearer. But people, so when you go shopping, are you sometimes confused? This picture, it says special, and at one part it says that these are avocados. It says organic avocados in big print, but in the small print up above, it says conventional from Mexico. So if they can't even necessarily get it right at the grocery store, how are you going to make informed decisions? So today what we're going to be talking about is, well, healthy eating, of course, since we're the nutrition webinar team, you know we're going to be talking about healthy eating, but also about our food systems as a whole, and to provide you with hopefully some information to help you with your decision making when you're doing your shopping. So first of all, why eat healthy? Well, they can help you reduce your risk for chronic disease, things like heart disease, diabetes, a lot of different kinds of disease, or even to help you manage a chronic disease, to get the appropriate calorie limits for your age and your activity level, but also to think about meeting your nutritional needs with food as opposed to supplements. That's kind of a recurring theme through all of our webinars, but the importance of getting nutrients from real food. But also, healthy eating patterns are adaptable. But also, you want your goals related to healthy eating to be achievable and maintainable. And by eating healthy food and incorporating them into your diet, you can reach all of these things. And feel free to chat into our chat box as we go along. But is there one perfect way of eating? What do you think? Is there a one-size-fits-all? And one of the things to think about, like with the My Plate picture, is there are a couple different eating patterns, because there's the My Plate, which we have the picture of, but also, for example, one of our previous webinars, we talked about the Mediterranean diet, but also some people are vegetarian or vegan, things like that. You've got to find what works for you and to find the pattern that works for you. And so let's look at some of the influences on what you eat. And if there's others, please, that I've missed here, please put them in the chat boxes. But first of all, one of the things to think about when people make what influences their decisions are what they like. Because it could be the healthiest food in the world, but if you or your family doesn't like it, you're not going to buy it. You're not going to fix it. Your finances, your family finances will affect what you eat, what's available, either seasonally or even available in your neighborhood. So all these things, one of the things that we're going to emphasize as we go through this is thinking about eating seasonally to getting the freshest flavors. So at certain times of year, depending on where you live, certain foods may not be available, or they may be harder to get, but also your health status, or your health status of your family members affect what you eat. Also, what do you think about time? I mean, how many of you have time to prepare huge, spend 2 or 3 hours fixing a meal? I know I don't, but that influences what you eat. If you can prepare your preparation skills, so you're wanting to eat healthy, but you don't know how to prepare healthy meals, big effect. Marketing, advertising affects us hugely what we buy, and even more so, it affects probably our children. The latest, greatest toy. If you get a toy with a meal at the fast food, they want to eat that instead of a homegrown or homemade. Also, one of the other things that we'll be talking about today is your personal opinions on what you eat, how you choose your food. So did anybody else think of any others for things that, oops, hit the wrong button. Any other differences, any ideas about other influences? Don't see anything in the chat box, so I will keep moving. So some of the key elements of eating healthy. Really think about it as a lifetime plan. It doesn't matter if you ate every bit of ice cream in your freezer yesterday. It's the whole plan. To following a healthy eating plan most of the time. And think about variety, the nutrient quality of your food, and also the portion sizes. And then watch your added sugars and your saturated fats, and also consider reducing your sodium intake. And then to slowly shift towards a healthier diet and healthier beverage choices as well. That if you think you're going to make these big changes in one day and suddenly cook everything from scratch and be perfect, it's not going to work. So work towards them, and then, and try to get other people in your family to eat healthier as well. And we've talked before about the My Plate, and this is a great website, the choosemyplate.gov. It's got a lot of recommendations to get, your dairy foods. It's not just milk, it's dairy products, grains, preferably most of them whole grains, protein, and protein isn't just meat, it's things like eggs, peanut butter, tofu, and then of course to make half of your plate fruits and vegetables. And on our next slide we have our daily, one more slide after this. But to increase, I really want to encourage you, and we've mentioned this before, is to, instead of counting your calories, maybe count your servings of fruits and vegetables. To add more of them, they'll fill you up and they'll give you nutrients. And although we want to encourage you to eat fresh fruits and vegetables most often, because you're going to get, it'll be fresher, more flavorful, but certainly frozen fruits and vegetables, canned fruits and vegetables. With the canned, you potentially want to buy reduced sodium or rinse them off just to get some added salt off of them. But there's a lot of research that goes into the fact that people who eat more fruits and vegetables are going to get more nutrients. So anytime you process something, you're going to either take away or add something potentially. So aim for fresh most often, but make sure the most important thing is to get your fruits and vegetables. And Wendy just mentioned that berries and cherries are a good price right now. I had raspberries for breakfast, and I'm having cherries with lunch. So, and they're, this is the summer. The summertime's a great time to get fresh produce. And just a quick reminder about how much you should be eating. Women should be eating about 1.5 cups to 2 cups of fruit a day, and 2 to 2.5 cups of vegetables. Men, 2 cups fruit, and 2.5 to 3 of vegetables. It varies by your age, so just go to choosemyplate.gov for more information. And also, think about in this nutrition that if you eat a variety of colors, you're going to get a variety of nutrients. It's not just the vitamins, but antioxidants and things like that. So a colorful plate is more nutritious than something that's just all the same color. And then it's also a lot more interesting because you're going to get a lot more flavors. So what's our overall goal today? Well, when Hannah and I were working on this, we had a discussion about this. And really, we have a couple things that we want to encourage you to do. First of all, to improve your overall diet, especially to increase your intake of fruits and vegetables. But really one of the main points is understand how your food gets to your table, but also to help you make informed choices when you buy food. Because when you go to the grocery store, there's a lot of different, or the farmer's market, there's a lot of different things that affect our choices. So we want to talk about that, and we also would like you to increase your consumption of seasonal and local foods. And so with that, our first chat question that we would like you to chat in, and we'll give you a little bit as we switch over to Hannah, but so what does organic mean to you? And please put it in the chat box. So what does organic food mean to you? Expensive? Maybe.
All right, let's see if we can get any responses here before we get into the USDA National Organic Standards Board definition, because that is a little bit more confusing. And then I'll try to break it down for all of you guys by explaining what organic really is, what some of those standards are, what it means, and then we're going to compare organic to conventionally grown produce, and then talk about some locally grown options.
Okay, so some of the things in our chat box are not exposed to unnatural chemicals, no pesticides, the way that they are fertilized and grown, no added chemicals, fertilizers, and non-GMOs, and grown only with natural fertilizers, clean, in whatever I'm trying to say, real food. So Hannah, why don't you tell us?
All right. Well, according to the USDA National Organic Standards Board, organic means an ecological production management system that promotes and enhances biodiversity, biological cycles, and soil biological activity. It is based on minimal use of off-farm inputs and on management practices that restore, maintain, or enhance ecological harmony. The primary goal of organic agriculture is to optimize the health and productivity of interdependent communities of soil life, plants, animals, and people. So now I'll break that definition down for you. Organic uses renewable resources, and you may only use approved inputs. These are approved inputs by the Organic Materials Review Institute. These inputs are naturally available nutrients or naturally derived pesticides. We'll go into some details on some next slides. Most synthetic pesticides, nutrients, and other practices are prohibited. Some of those other practices could include processing and cleaning products also that would require certification. You must have an approved certifying agency, and handlers and processors must also be certified. So that means that if, say, an organic granola is being manufactured, the manufacturing facility must also meet organic standards and have an organic certification. So here on the next slide, you'll see some of the labels that are used to indicate certified organic. The USDA organic label there is the one that you'll see on the certified organic foods when you go to the grocery store. But for the actual growers, they're referring to this OMRI listed label. And that's where you'll find the list of products that are approved for use and descriptions of comparable products that are used for organic production. So OMRI actually determines which products and in which quantities and percentages are considered acceptable for organic production. So on the next slide, we'll talk about the organic labeling. There are actually some differences that you might not understand just by viewing the USDA organic label. Sometimes they are 100% organic products. Those are going to be products that contain only organically produced ingredients except for water and salt. Then we have just organic. Those contain at least 95% organically produced ingredients, and there are some exceptions, and up to 5% wiggle room to use products that are not considered certified organic. So you might not always understand that there is actually some wiggle room for growers that are using organic practices. They do have 5% wiggle room to use things that are not considered certified organic. And then we have made with organic ingredients. These contain at least 70% organic ingredients, and that's when you look more at finished goods. I'll refer to, say, an organic granola again. That's when you might look at the label, and you may see some ingredients are highlighted or bolded on the label, indicating that those are the organic ingredients making up that 70%. So more with organic labeling. To have the organic certification, you must be 95% organic to have that green and white seal. Or you can have less than $5,000 in sales. This might be a roadside stand or at some farmers markets where you see a smaller scale grower that can actually call their produce organic. They must comply with all of the organic standards, but they have certain exemptions as far as going through the same certification process as much larger, more profitable organic producers.
All right, so which tastes better? And so that's one of the things that's a question that people often ask, which tastes better, organic or conventional? Well, really, it is a matter of perception in a way, because a lot of factors go into how our food tastes. First of all, personal preference, but really, two of the really biggies are freshness and the particular variety of that particular type of produce. So certainly, if you put, so you're going to get the peak of flavor at the peak of freshness, but think a little bit about the varieties of different of a vegetable. Since we'll maybe mention tomatoes because I think they're a good example and they're one of my personal favorites. So a conventionally grown organic tomato of the same variety as an organically grown tomato of that variety, there might be a little bit of variations, and that might have to do with some of the growing practices, but there wouldn't really be probably a very huge difference in the flavor of it. However, if you happen to buy a tomato that you bought at the grocery store, which was grown for being shipped, because a different variety of tomato would be grown that if you're going to ship it someplace versus somebody who's going to grow it and sell it for almost immediate consumption at the farmer's market. And so really there's a lot of varietal differences, and when we look at heirloom varieties, which are older varieties, things that maybe our grandparents used to grow or maybe things that used to be produced more commercially, but as the shipping of them went further away and they were bred for different properties, you lose some of the flavors. So a lot of that goes into, that's really sometimes where the difference is so much in the type of, not so much how they're grown, but it was who they're grown for and where they're going to be shipped to. So if anybody has any questions on this, be sure to text in. And so think about that when you're buying your produce. Do you want to get it at a local market that may have been grown nearby you, or something that's been shipped across the country, or even sometimes across the world? And then the next question is organic more nutritious? Well, there's lots of research. We looked at meta-analysis, which is the bigger, where you look at a lot of the different research to see some of the information, and really the jury is still out on that question. That some will say yes, there's some differences potentially in related to maybe some of the micronutrients. It depends on really where they've grown, because you could grow one crop in one part of the country and one in a different, and Hannah will talk some of that about that, is the growing conditions. The uptake of some of the nutrients from the soil could be different. So we'd like to be able to conclusively say that there is a difference or there's not a difference, but the jury's still out on that, and more and more research is being done on that. Oh, and I see that there was something in the chat box related to what Hannah was talking about, related to the organic, and somebody put in, was that less than $5,000 per day? It's $5,000 per year.
Yes, per year. Good question, though. So those producers are very small scale, and when you think of $5,000 per year, that just really isn't even enough for someone to economically sustain themselves or their family by only having a farm. So it is extremely limited. So now we're going to move on to talk about some people's perception of conventional agriculture. And we have two really good photographs that actually do depict practices used in conventional agriculture. But there's actually a lot more to the story, because these practices are used in the name of efficiency, delivering the best product to the consumer in a timely manner using the most efficient use of resources. So yes, you will see that there's use of tractors and airplanes in conventional agriculture, but these are the guys and gals that are responsible for feeding a lot of people. So these are the practices that they use to make sure that they can deliver produce to us at an affordable price. So some common terms: conventional farming uses a variety of production methods to maximize efficiency and production. They're going to use a lot of different things, from additions of organic matter to using manufactured chemicals and pesticides that are going to help them to produce a high quality product that can make it to your dinner table in a timely fashion. Then we talk about sustainable farming. Well, sustainable farming is not just about being ecologically sound, but it's also being socially and economically supportive and viable. So we have to remember that our farmers also need to be able to make money. And research does indicate that yields on organic farms are typically lower than yields of conventional farms. And that has a lot to do with the nutrient inputs and the pest management practices, because the organic growers are experiencing more losses to things like pests, where our conventional growers are utilizing everything possible to make sure that we are going to get the most efficient use of all of our inputs. So they're not just dousing chemicals onto these crops. They're actually very conservative with their resources, because profit margins are extremely slim for these big farms. So they will use a combination of traditional and high-tech techniques. They'll use integrated pest management practices and incorporate beneficial insects. And these farmers are even so keen on what is going on with their crops that they even know how much nitrogen will be delivered to their crop from a 30-minute rainstorm. And they'll adjust their fertilization practices based on the rains so that they're not wasting any more nutrients than they need to, because that's money in their pocket at the end of the day. So we're going to move on to the actual differences between organic and conventional. What is the difference? Well, it's really all about the nutrients. We could go into some really scary looking diagrams that you might remember from science class back in the day, talking about the nitrogen cycle, but I went ahead and broke it down to make it a little more easy to understand for you all. So we have here a picture of the organic process. It's really all about where the nitrogen comes from. So in the first portion of this image, we have our worms, we have fish, we have compost, we have cover crops. This is all a source of soil organic matter. That's any material in the soil that was originally produced by living organisms. That can be manures, worm castings, fish emulsions, cover crops. Native Americans actually used to dig holes and put fish into them to help supply nutrients to their crops. But there's actually more to that story. These manures, worm castings, and fish are actually broken down by fungi, bacteria, and other microorganisms that exist in our soil. Those microorganisms help to break down that organic matter to make nutrients available in a form that the plants can actually uptake. So the plants that prefer to take up nutrients in the form of nitrate. Essentially, in conventional agricultural practices, we are manufacturing chemicals to deliver to the plants as nitrate. So we'll go on to the slide about the conventional agriculture. Now, these are nutrients that are manufactured. It's a high energy process that is required to split to break the nitrogen bond, and we use a variety, and also in conventional agriculture, there's a variety of pest management strategies, and the pesticides are typically chemically manufactured and regulated as well. So instead of the nutrients coming from natural forms, they're being manufactured. And the manufacturing is very energy intensive. So there is a lot of petroleum that is used in the manufacturing of chemicals and fertilizers for conventional agriculture. But essentially, they're breaking them down in a process to make these nutrients available to the plants to take up. So at the end of the day, in conventional agriculture and in organic agriculture, the plant is taking up the same ionic form of the nutrient. It's actually the process and how that nutrient is made that's different. So when Julie talked about how the jury is still out on the nutritional variance on organic versus conventionally grown food, so organic purchases are generally driven by environmental concerns. And now you can see that it's because of how these nutrients are ultimately delivered to the plant. So maybe that's cleared things up, maybe it's still a little bit confusing, but there are some other terms to be considered. So let's talk local. Well, the definitions may vary, and the jury's still out on which definition to follow. So it's really up to making informed decisions. Some people would consider local to be grown only in their county. Some might consider it to be regional, or say 200 to 250 miles away. Some folks might consider it the state or even the southeast. But even the United States could be considered local to some individuals. So it's just being aware of really where your food is coming from and the food miles that it's traveling. So what are some reasons to buy locally? Well, one reason is maximum freshness. By purchasing food that is locally grown, you are going to get the freshest food that hasn't been grown specifically for being shipped on a truck and stored for longer periods of time. So you'll be able to take advantage of the optimal nutrition from that produce by getting it at its peak freshness. Also, variety. The varieties available locally are going to be in season. So again, you're tapping into the maximum freshness, and you are going to be consuming varieties that grow in your local area. You can know the grower and their practices, So whether or not the grower is using organic or conventional agricultural practices, you'll have an opportunity to get to know that farmer and talk to them about their practices. Learn why they use these practices. Maybe they have a good reason for why they do use a certain pesticide, and maybe it's to get that food to you at a cheaper price. Or maybe they use organic practices for a very particular reason, and maybe you'll be willing to pay an extra dollar per pound for that food because of it. So it's a really great opportunity to learn a little bit more about your growers and how they grow their food. You can also help the local farmers. These local farmers aren't just farmers, but they're families. They are also living in our local community and supporting other local businesses. So there are a lot of affiliated industries with farming, and by supporting local farmers, you can keep more a higher percentage of your food dollar in the local economy, bringing us to number 6, bolstering the local economy. You also have an opportunity to protect the environment by reducing packaging. You won't see local produce that is packaged for transportation and shipment as often as in your with more conventionally grown produce. So you are reducing your carbon footprint by and protecting the environment by reducing the amount of packaging that's used. And it's a great experience to purchase your food from someone that you can relate to. There is certainly a feeling of community, and you can find the best value. And value might not just be referring to the dollar, but referring to that feeling of community and knowing that you're supporting your local economy and things like that. So lots of good reasons to buy locally. So now we have an interesting question for you guys. If you buy food at a farmer's market, is it local? So we'd
So what do you
really,
think?
yeah, we'd love to hear some answers on this one.
Sometimes, okay, not all the time.
All right, and how do
Anybody
we
else?
know some of
Lots of
these
sometimes, it
differences?
looks like.
Yep. Well, sometimes is a great answer. It's
Yes, it
not the
is.
clearest answer, but that is the truth. So the reality is that if you buy your food at a farmer's market, sometimes it's local, sometimes it's not. So that's why it is important to know your farmer and know your food. If you do want to know how your food was produced, talk to the person at the market. Build a trusting relationship with the farmer and ask them questions. And really being familiar with what's in season will really help you to gauge what produce might be available if that farmer is growing their own or if they're sourcing it from somewhere else. So you want to talk to the person at the market. Ask them if they grew it themselves or where they got it. Ask how it was produced. And then go ahead and ask if they bought it from another grower. Ask details about that grower, if it's another local grower or where they are, or if they bought it from a terminal market. Oftentimes, farmers, folks that do sell produce at farmers market will purchase the produce from a larger, say a state farmers market, where there's produce that is available from really all across the United States and even other parts of the world. So there is a representation of food available at farmers markets that isn't necessarily grown by local farmers. So it's important to understand some of these differences and that not all food at the farmers market is grown locally. Still, you are buying fresh produce, and that is certainly encouraged, but it's just good to be aware of some of these other issues. And always remember, look at the product. Is it good quality? Is it free of major blemishes? So by building a trusting relationship with the farmers, by knowing your farmer, you really can know your food. So how do we find our local food? Here in Central Florida, we do have a few options available. There's the Central Florida Local Food Guide that is it is pretty comprehensive. It includes local markets and local farmers and where you can find their produce. And our extension office has also created a Seminole County Guide to Farms and Markets that features some of our local farmers. But then, so I encourage you to go ahead and ask the agricultural agents in your offices, check with your county extension to see if there's something similar available, or if there are some local growers that do sell their produce locally that is easily accessible for you. But a very easy way to find local produce is the Fresh from Florida label. So you'll see the Fresh from Florida label right here. That is a statewide program through the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services to promote Florida produce both here in the state and promote Florida produce in other states, because we really are very integral in the winter vegetable market for a lot of the other states in the U.S. So that label is a great way to identify produce that has been grown right here in Florida. So oftentimes when you go to the grocery store, go ahead and look for that label. You know, check out prices, see if they're comparable, and after things that we've talked about today, maybe you'll find that there are certain benefits to buying fresh from Florida and keeping the food dollar locally and supporting farmers right here in our state. And now we'll talk about country of origin labeling, because of course not all food is available all the time, and even if there is good food available in season locally, maybe we're just not in the mood for that. Maybe we want to eat an apple or a banana. So it's important to understand country of origin labeling. This requires retailers to notify customers of the country of origin of covered commodities. It includes perishable farm commodities, wild and farm-raised fish and shellfish, and some meats. However, it was amended to exclude muscle-cut beef and pork and ground beef and pork. So the country of origin labeling is good to be aware of, good to check out, because it can help you to make more informed food purchases. Maybe you are more concerned about the distance that food travels. On average, food does travel 1,500 miles from the farm to our plate. So maybe buying something that was grown a little bit closer is something that is more important to you now. So just be aware that you can learn a lot more about food and where it comes from by observing the country of origin label. So now we'll move out of the world of conventional organic, local, and move on to our next chat box question. What does natural and all natural mean?
Yes, give us your description. We're just dying to know. So, because this is one of the questions that, you know, or you go to the store and it says it's natural, it's all natural. So, and not all natural does not mean that it has something to do with zombies. All right, so Jamla put, it means what the manufacturer wants it to mean. It's flavored to taste naturally. Okay, anybody else? All right, so I have the official definition, I think it was from the USDA, well, the FDA. And so basically, when you read it, it basically tells you that it really doesn't mean anything. And so it mentions, I mean, I just took this off the USDA's website, and it's basically talks about that it's difficult to find what natural is because the food has probably been processed. It's no longer a product of the earth, but does say that the FDA has not developed a definition of what the term natural or its derivatives. But the last sentence says, however, the agency has not objected to the use of the term. Doesn't mean that it has anything that they say any definition of what it is. It just says that the FDA has not objected to the use of the term if the food does not contain added color, artificial flavors, or synthetic substances. So it's not a regulated statement. And one of my favorite things that I've seen about it is things about, because a lot of times we talk about marketing. And so I always like to say that the front of the package is marketing, the back of the package, where it tells you the ingredients, and the nutrition is really the important things. But one of my favorite ads on TV is for a supplement that says it uses naturally sourced pumpkin seeds. Okay, well that sounds really great. It's naturally sourced. So what is a naturally sourced pumpkin seed? Anybody want to put that one in the chat box? Why is that different? Because a lot of times it really is marketing. And so, okay, somebody put that it doesn't tell what the product does contain, it tells you what it does not contain. That is true. It doesn't have artificial colors and things. So back to our naturally sourced pumpkin seeds, well, they probably came from a pumpkin. I could naturally source anything. I could grow my pumpkin probably next to a nuclear power plant, but as soon as I took my pumpkin seeds out of them, they're naturally sourced. So do be aware that some of these definitions really don't say anything. They just want to convince you that it's a better, healthier product and that you should pay extra for it. And so our next few slides, we just want to talk about a couple different things related to some of this. So what's in a name? A really popular type of onion is Vidalia onions. And this was at our local store this week when I happened to be there. These happen to be organic. But Vidalia onions, it's a branded product. You'll see that it says real sweet, Georgia grown. There's Vidalia, Georgia. So I could grow those same onions in Sanford, Florida, where we live, but I couldn't call them Vidalia onions. They would be sweet onions. So Vidalia has done a great job of marketing their onions, because when we think of sweet onions, we think of Vidalias. But there's also Walla Walla sweets, there's a Texas sweet, and so they're going to be somewhat similar. And when you think about the geographic area, you think of Walla Walla, which is in Washington, sweet onions versus Vidalia onions, they're going to have a different growing season. And so they're going to be available at different times. So just don't think that there's one specific type of sweet onion or some other product, that there's going to be variations, and that different times of year, different ones are going to be available. And then I saw this package recently at my grocery store. And so for those of you who like corn, especially in the Central Florida areas, the Zellwood area, which used to be the huge Florida sweet corn capital, and they grew Silver Queen corn, which is a white kind of corn. And so, but when we look at this package, what does it say? It looks kind of yellow, but in the grocery store it really was white corn. But it sells Silver Queen, and then in tiny little letters in between the Silver Queen and corn, it says it's Silver Queen style corn. So anybody want to put in the chat box what they think that means? What would Silver Queen style corn be? Any ideas? So Silver Queen was a traditional white corn. It was grown for years and years in the Zellwood area, and it was grown a lot commercially. And somebody put in it tastes like it, but not the real thing. Silver Queen's a variety of corn, and it doesn't ship well. And so you're more likely to get actual real Silver Queen corn at a roadside stand or farmer's market. But now they grow super sweet white corn because it's more shippable. It's a little bit, and it holds its flavor better. And so I'm guessing, look at this package, that our Silver Queen style corn is just some kind of, super sweet white corn that they grew for shipping. Now, I do want to mention that a lot of times, basically all the time, that the shipping corn is grown right near the factories. And so they're not shipping, it's not taking a long time to get from the farm to where they're packing it. And that the goal is to get it out of the field and either canned or frozen or whatever as quick as it can so it maintains its peak of flavor. Okay, and my another favorite things to talk about is, so please type in, what are these? We have a cup with something in it. So what is this product that's in this cup? There's some kind of carrots, but what kind of carrots are they? All right, somebody put baby. Oh, somebody put, Cindy. Somebody put baby carrots. Somebody put, a couple people put baby carrots. Somebody put, Wendy Dahl, not really baby carrots. There's, all righty. So when we look at these, people are generally going to put, Celeste put not really. Okay, so if you were to read the label, it says that they're baby cut carrots. And there's a big difference because baby cut carrots are, and there is absolutely nothing wrong. Let me make this clear. There's certainly nothing wrong with baby carrots. They're a convenience thing. They're great to have, to get out and munch on. They're great snacks. But they're different than a baby carrot, which are the younger carrots. Baby cut carrots are actually manufactured from regular carrots. They're probably the carrots that weren't perfect looking to go in our little bags of the 1 pound and 2 pound bags. And so they're actually kind of they're cut out of real carrots. And a lot of times they're more the core of the carrot, so they're not necessarily as sweet as what an actual baby carrot would be, or even a regular carrot. But they're really convenient. They are good, as the package says, a good source of vitamins A and C. And so this is one of the choices that to make when you're thinking about what food to buy. You buy what works for you, what fits into your budget, things like that. So before we sum up, I do want to mention just a few things related to food safety. As Hannah alluded to it in one of her slides related to choosing products and getting them that don't have blemishes and things like that. One of the things, though, that people expect with food, that they want it to be perfect. And certainly we don't want it to have, cuts, mold, or decay, but sometimes maybe some minor dings on things that came out of the field, nothing wrong with them, because Americans throw away humongous amounts of food, both at the production level and at the consumer level. We throw out about a third of our food. And so do think about food safety. It's really important to make sure that you get good quality, but it doesn't have to be absolutely, absolutely perfect. But no matter what kind of produce you get, wherever it's from, you do want to wash it. If you have a vegetable brush for some of the bigger things, that's great. You can physically remove some of it, put it under cold running water. Don't use soap. And you really don't need those special produce wash products either. So basically running water, a brush if it's something that's got a skin that it's not going to damage it. But do wash it all. And if you're going to, but don't bring it home and wash it immediately and put it in your refrigerator. Wash it before you're ready to use it. Because once you have the water on it, it may start to degrade a little bit. And it doesn't do any good to keep it clean if you put it in a nasty, dirty refrigerator. So keep your refrigerator clean too. And so kind of to sum it up, and please chat in any questions that you might have related to this as we're finishing up. But the important thing is we go back to what it is that we're trying to accomplish today. We want you to choose to eat healthier and to include more fruits and vegetables into your diet. And so, but no matter how your food is grown, to say, eat a variety of healthy foods, not just produce. Eat fresh more often, because then you're going to have less additives or changes to it. And read labels. Yes, I know there aren't specifically labels on produce related to nutrition, but with your other things that are processed, do read the labels and choose your foods for their taste, their flavor, your produce. If you're eating something that's closer to where it's grown, it's probably not as far removed from the field, and so it's going to retain its flavor. But we also have a great transportation for getting foods across the country or across, even all parts of the world. So, but choose fresh, healthy, tasty foods. And if you're going to buy them at, market, know your grower and or market, look for some different ways, CSAs, which are community supported agriculture. Find out where your local markets are. and learn more about what you're eating. And so with that, if I get my last slide, please chat in any questions. Please do download the materials while they're still up there. We will be sending you an evaluation for today's session a little bit later this afternoon. So please do answer that. Please do respond. It really only takes like 2 minutes max really to go through it. And it's really important to us that we get your evaluations. And remember, next month our nutrition webinar, Jamila and Wendy Dahl, Dr. Dahl are going to be talking about how sweet it is, and they're going to be talking about nutritive and non-nutritive sweeteners. So any questions for any of us? We'll give it a minute or so to see if you have it. And also, when you do the survey, if you want to let us know about any ideas for upcoming webinars, we're still planning them. So we also would like to hear that. So we do hope that this webinar has helped you will help you make some informed decisions about, how to choose your produce. Thank you for the good comments, and I don't see any questions. Okay. Well, I don't see any questions, so Jamila, since you're in charge, I don't think that I can knock us out. So you'll just have to X us out.
Yep, I will do that.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, everyone.